All right, hello, fellow Unit 9 people that are doing this too. Anthony Zortia here with my Unit 9 case study. I picked two scenarios, and here we go. Okay. All right, so the first scenario that I chose was for a proactive circle, and this was the celebration of a culminating event or a big transition. So I chose to talk about the celebration of the ending of a school year. So um, going by the listening circle template, kind of went with that. Our goal of the circle here, what I really thought was important, was to recognize success of the year and how students had grown. Because I think that's something really important, especially in math, since we're constantly changing topics. Students very rarely have a chance to reflect on success, and they're so often just faced with what they don't know. So this is something I think is really important to focus on for the end of the year. Our grounding activity, I always bring my guitar to school, and on my bad days when I'm in a weird mood, sometimes we just write songs as a class, and I kind of just write some silly songs, and sometimes I get lucky and something catchy kind of comes into the brain, and that kind of becomes an anthem or a theme for a year. We already have one song this year. So that would be a fun grounding activity, just to sing our silly song and bring everyone together. So for our circle questions, this is something I've been trying to work on, is asking 3 questions that consider the past, present, and the future. So the first question here would be, what is one thing that you were looking forward to or worried about this year? So here we're thinking about growth, right? It could be I was worried about switching classes for the first time, and then, oh wow, I did it. Or I was worried about PSSA this year, but oh wow, we did it. It's okay. So again, it's focusing on that growth part. Second, focusing on the question about the present would be, how are you feeling now that our year is ended? Are you happy because it was difficult? Or are you sad that, are you sad because you had a lot of fun? Are there a mix of emotions? Because that's, the most likely thing. And then last, considering the future, what is something from this year that you will remember forever? They'll probably forget it in a couple days, but what is it to them that kind of stands out as important? And that's always good for them to reflect on, but also me to reflect on, what is it that I'm giving the students that may seem unimportant to me, but turns out to be really important to them. So that is my proactive circle for the end of the year. I guess it's really proactive for the teacher next year, so you're welcome. I expect a thank you card. All right. So my next is the reactive scenario, and this would be an impromptu conference. I was trying to really focus on what's something that I'm not only likely to encounter, just something that I have encountered a million times and will encounter a million times. So what am I more likely to do? A formal conference or an impromptu conference? I'm way more likely to have an impromptu conference in my day-to-day teaching. So I kind of made my own situation. But 2 students come up to me at recess. 1 student complains that the other student is annoying them. This happens all the time. All the time. So what I'm going to present here is what I hope might work. But as I try to have a more restorative conversation with students, I need more experience into how that conversation might go. Because I'm just kind of assuming how the conversation would go based off of my maybe less than restorative methods I've used before. So first, I would bring the students together and ask them what happened, right? That is cookie cutter, boilerplate, boring old restorative practices. But obviously they work because it gives both students an opportunity. It gives me an opportunity to hear both students' sides, but it also gives the students an opportunity to hear, I know that I acted a certain way. How was it perceived by the other person? So I would then ask the victim in this case, why do they feel annoyed? What do you mean annoyed? What is it about this person's actions that you perceived as annoyed? So then the victim, quote unquote, gets to explain themselves, explain how they feel, but the offender also then gets to hear how their behavior was perceived. So then we would ask the offender, how does it feel to see that their action is being labeled as annoying? Obviously we know that most times it's just someone that wants to be friends with somebody else and doesn't quite know how to. And a lot of times that comes off as negative behavior, and that's obviously not okay. But we really want to drive the point home of, if you want to be friends with someone, you have to be a friend to someone. So how does it feel to know that what you're doing is being perceived as annoying? And then, if I've done the proactive work, right, this last part doesn't work in a vacuum. It's reliant on the proactive part. It's reliant on building a community in the classroom where we have students that care about each other. Otherwise, this last section is all just fluffy stuff that's never going to happen. So the last question then is, we can ask both students how they can change their annoying behavior to be just fun. So maybe the victim says, well, in order to not be annoying, I need you to stop poking me, to stop throwing wood chips at me. And the victim could reply, in order to not be annoying, I can do X, Y, and Z. Maybe the victim can say, oh, I can try a little bit harder to include Susie in the game, because I know when I'm not including her, that's when she's really pushing and being annoying. So really trying to get to the bottom of, what can both students do to fix this problem? And again, it's so reliant on already having built the foundation, because otherwise the victim who's being annoyed is just going to write off the other student and isn't going to care to want to be a part of changing the behavior. So that's, when we talk about the 80-20, it's, maybe even more than that. Maybe it's even 90-10. But this is how I hope things would go in a bright, beautiful world. And I'm definitely just going to try this a bunch of times at school and see what happens and see what path it goes on and get some experience. So there's that. Thanks for listening, and have a wonderful night.